Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're exploring a fascinating paradox. Really, think about this. Deep inside your brain, there's a system that can cause two completely opposite problems. It can leave someone totally unable to move, or it can cause uncontrollable, nonstop movement. So how on earth is that possible?
Well, on one side of the coin, you've got conditions like Parkinsonism. This is where movements are slow, they're rigid, they're incredibly hard to even start. It's like the body's emergency brake is just permanently stuck on. And then, on the complete other end, you have something like chorea, where the body's in constant, involuntary motion, as if the brakes have just totally failed.
It just seems impossible, doesn't it? How can the exact same neural machinery be responsible for both freezing up and flailing around? Well, the answer lies deep inside a set of structures that act as the brain's ultimate gatekeeper for every move we make. Okay, let's get into it. The hero, or maybe the anti-hero, of our story is a group of nuclei called the basal ganglia. Now, you got to think of them not as the engine of movement. That's more the motor cortex. No, the basal ganglia are more like the sophisticated traffic control system that decides which movements get the green light and, just as critically, which ones get a big red stop sign.
So their main job is to fine-tune every single action, making sure our movements are smooth and purposeful and, just right. And to pull off this incredible feat, they use two beautifully balanced, totally opposing pathways.
So, first up is the direct pathway. Just think of this as the gas pedal. It's the go signal. When your brain decides, I'm going to pick up that cup of coffee, this pathway gets the signal and basically opens a gate, telling the motor cortex, all right, let's do this. And its counterpart is the indirect pathway. This is the brake. This is the stop signal. And its job is absolutely crucial. It's got to suppress all the other random, unwanted movements your brain might be thinking about at the same time. It's what stops your other arm from just flying up while you're trying to drink your coffee. It keeps the action clean and precise.
So here's the key takeaway. Every single normal, coordinated movement you make is balanced on a knife's edge. It's a perfect equilibrium between the go pathway pushing you forward and the stop pathway holding you back. But what happens when that super delicate balance gets tipped?
So what happens when that balance is totally lost? Well, first let's look at what goes down when the system gets tipped way too far towards stop. This is where you get what are called hypokinetic or reduced movement disorders. And the classic example here, of course, is Parkinsonism. The root cause is a loss of a neurotransmitter called dopamine. And you can think of dopamine as the master regulator, the oil in the engine that keeps both the go and stop pathways running in perfect harmony.
And this is where the dominoes really start to fall. Without enough dopamine to keep things running smoothly, the go pathway gets weaker. And at the same time, the stop pathway becomes hyperactive. This effectively just slams the brakes on the entire motor system. It's just too much inhibition.
And the result of that is exactly what you see in Parkinsonism. The body is being screamed at, don't move, far more loudly than it's being told move. And that leads to that characteristic slowness, that difficulty just getting a movement started, and that unstable posture. Now, this brings up something that confuses a lot of people. If the main problem is not enough movement, why do the muscles get so stiff and rigid? It feels a little counterintuitive, right?
And here's the answer. The basal ganglia don't just say start or stop to a movement. They are constantly setting our background muscle tone. So when that stop pathway is in total overdrive, it cranks up that background tone, causing a constant high level of muscle contraction. And that's what we see as rigidity. Okay, let's totally flip the coin and look at the exact opposite scenario. What happens when the system is tipped way too far towards go? When the brakes are basically broken. This is what leads to hyperkinetic or excessive movement disorders. And the most famous of these is chorea. Fun fact, it actually gets its name from the Greek word for dance, which is a reference to the flowing, uncontrollable, almost dance-like movements that you see.
And you can probably guess what's happening here. In conditions like Huntington disease, the actual neurons that make up the stop pathway start to die off. So the brake pedal isn't just weak, it's being ripped out of the car entirely. So why does this specific kind of damage, losing the stop neurons, lead to these very particular jerky, dance-like movements? Why isn't it just random muscle twitches? Well, the answer is that the gatekeeper has lost its filter. All of those competing motor programs that the stop pathway is supposed to be holding back are now just free to fire whenever they want. They randomly slip through the gate, and that results in a constant, unpredictable flow of these involuntary actions.
You know, understanding this delicate dance between go and stop isn't just a cool piece of neuroscience, it is the entire foundation for how we even begin to treat these devastating disorders. The whole goal is always to try and nudge the system back toward its center.
So what this means is that treatment strategies are all about pushing that system back to its tipping point. For Parkinsonism, where the go signal is way too weak, treatments like levodopa try to boost dopamine levels. For the hyperkinetic disorders, where the stop signal is gone, it's a much harder challenge, but the goal is to somehow calm down that excessive output, sometimes using things like deep brain stimulation to try and reset the whole circuit.
And that leaves us with a pretty profound final thought. We usually think of being still as, well, the absence of doing anything, a passive state. But it's not. It's really not. Standing perfectly still is an active, powerful achievement of incredible neural control. It's a constant, powerful suppression of a million potential movements, all being perfectly managed by this gatekeeping system. It turns out that what we call normal isn't a state of rest at all, but a state of perfect dynamic balance.